How did Veno Curve go from being the FNCS champions to not even making the Heats round of the Reload Elite Series in the space of just 2 weeks? Well, that's what I'm going to be investigating because they are far from the only big duo that struggled. I'll talk about all the teams that didn't qualify, which duos actually did really well, all of that and more in today's EU review. So with FNCS out of the way, we are back into the swing of things with the Esports World Cup qualifiers and we are back into playing Reload. This round was the play-ins, which meant it was the top 80 duos that qualify for Heats, and a lot of big duos were not able to get into that threshold. Veno and Curve, perhaps the biggest names that missed out. They of course won their FNCS over on NA Central, but they came to Europe to play this tournament and things just did not go to plan for them. Day one actually wasn't too bad. They finished in 17th place, well inside the qualification range, but on that second day things just fell apart. We can attribute their struggles to 3 factors: a strange meta, some bad luck and a couple of mistakes. Let's take a look at some of their games and see what went wrong. In their second game they died to full damage after a failed overdrive grenade rotation. Now yes, this does seem like a bug, but it is something that's been in the game for quite a while now. They took a big risk doing their second jump from such a height. They definitely got caught out by the elevation changes over at Chiseled Cubes. I'm not trying to single these guys out or anything because a lot of other big duos struggled, but taking a look at these games we can see that luck was not always on their side. Here's game 3. As you can see, they get locked on and that completely ends their game. Very unfortunate stuff. In their 4th game they do make a mistake by taking an unnecessary fight on the edge of the zone. Both Veno and Curve get knocked and they have to take an extended stay outside of the zone, but ultimately they do succumb to the storm. They were trying to play very aggressively during this cup, and as you've just seen, it did not always work out well for them. In game 5 they get lurked on again, perhaps you're sensing a theme here, and then in their 6th game they get taken out in a mid-game fight by a fake Demus and Chino. Veno gets knocked after opening this edit, and then Curve dies after being spammed with the cube rifle. More on that item in just a minute. And then in game 7, you guessed it, they get lurked on again. They go through the tunnel and there is a team waiting for them and they do get eliminated. Now I will say that their heads were kind of gone by this point. The vibes were not great, and usually I'm not sure they'd make the decision to go through this tunnel because from Veno's comms it did seem like he knew that there was a possibility a team would be there, but by this stage these guys were clearly not enjoying playing. Now listen, the next few games were better for them and they did end the tournament in style with a 21 kill win. Unfortunately there is a 10 kill cap in this tournament, so it didn't mean too much, and they ended up finishing 491st for the day, which meant they finished 96th on the overall leaderboard, just shy of the top 80 needed to qualify. Listen, the overall thing I want to get across with these guys is not to panic. They won FNCS only 2 weeks ago. They're clearly a great duo, and I think we can chalk this off as a one-off performance. They did fine on their first day, showing that they do understand how to play Reload, and then on that second day everything just went wrong for them. They were playing evil Fortnite from start to finish, but the fact that they weren't too far off qualification despite having a worst case scenario of a day shows that they do have a lot of quality. I do feel for them, especially Curve, as he's just moved all the way from America just to not make it into the Heats. But listen, this sets up these storylines perfectly for them to make it through in the final qualifier next month. I do still believe that they have a great shot of qualifying for the Esports World Cup LAN. Now as I've mentioned already, Veno and Curve were not the only big team to have missed out. Yapko and Panzer also failed to qualify for the Heats. Now the reason why I'm not going to discuss this in too much depth and why I don't think it's a massive deal is because they have already qualified for the Reload Elite Series. They came second in the last EWC qualifier, so they've already secured their spot at LAN. Even so though, they are a top duo, and I have to say it's very surprising that they haven't made it. Panzer was not happy with the meta. He was venting about the cube rifle over on Twitter, and this brings me on to a very important point because the Reload meta right now could seriously use some work. The cube rifle is currently in the game. It has this horrendous splash damage effect which is just impossible to counter against. It feels so frustrating when someone is using it against you, and honestly I can't believe this item is still equipped in the game. The fact that it was buffed as well is insane to me. It was already quite broken and then Epic decided to make it even stronger. Listen, I don't think this is going to be still in the meta by the time that finals come around, but it's fair to say that it did affect the quality of Heats. I will say that if it was taken out prior to the tournament starting, we would have seen less big duos miss out. There's other issues too. The cluster cannon isn't great, but it's fair to say that the cube rifle is the biggest problem right now. The good news though is that it leaves a very easy fix for Epic. They simply need to remove the cube rifle from tournament and ranked playlists, and then with just that change I genuinely think the Reload meta improves massively. I do think that the map is quite fun. There's also a nice range of guns in the game. Yes, there's a couple of strange items in like the hunting rifle, but honestly it does make for something different, and overall I am a fan of this current Reload meta. As long as they remove the cube rifle, then I think we're in for a great heats and finals. Now, before I take a look at the top 10 from the leaderboard and we have our first look at the heats maps, let's talk about all the other big names that missed out. Pink and Murstache finished narrowly outside of the top 80 in 82nd place. They actually came second in their final game. Had they been able to convert that into a win, then they would have qualified, so pretty gutting stuff for them. It does now look like they have split as well. Sined and Giras failed to make it, as did Queasy and Velry. Honestly, I'm not massively surprised by this. They had a pretty low finish in the opens and they weren't able to turn things around in time for the play-ins. I'm not sure we'll be seeing this duo again. Eyedrop and Marius didn't make it. They actually did really well on day 2, finishing in 16th place, but they came 533rd on day 1, so it was always going to be a massive job to come back from that, and they weren't quite able to pull it off. Vanya and the Frizzy also failed to make it, as did Acer and Rax, as did Pix and Ghost. Mongrel and Lixium also failed to qualify, as did Dandapuzo and Werex, and Khan and Faded Pigeon, one of the teams that have already qualified for the Esports World Cup, also missed out on the top 80. But don't worry, we did have some big names make it. In first place over the 2 days, we had Darm and Demush. They were remarkable throughout this whole tournament, bouncing back from a relatively poor divisional cup placement where they finished 23rd at the weekend. These guys have so much quality. They of course came 7th in FNCS without a drop spot. They won the first divisional cup of the season. I have no doubts that they will be one of the favourites to make the Esports World Cup LAN. Looking down the leaderboard, there's no real shocks. You've got Akira and Karama and King Cringe and Twy, two teams that I always praise highly for being super hardworking and super consistent in tournaments. Then you've got Sky and Scroll, the best duo in the world. Focus and Thomas HD also made it. Focus had the most eliminations out of any player in the lobby with 126, so fair play to him. Mr. Savage and Velo had a bit of an up and down tournament. They did excellently on day 1, finishing 9th overall. On day 2, things did get a little bit more ropey. They finished in 492nd place, only 1 spot behind Veno and Curve for the day. But unlike them, their day 1 performance was enough to just about carry them through, and we will be seeing them in the heats. Reason and Noah Rayleigh also qualified. They absolutely abused the cube rifles from height. Fair to say that they grasped the meta pretty quickly, so credit to them, but it can't have been fun for those teams on the low ground. Chap and Flixie made it too. Flixie had the most eliminations on day 1, so fair play to him. And Swizzy and Pixie have officially made it through to finals. They had a very turbulent tournament. They of course came first in the opens round. They then came first on day 1 of these play-ins, and then on day 2, disaster struck. They couldn't queue for the first hour or so. They were only able to play 4 games of the tournament, and they won all 4 with 10 plus kills to secure their qualification. A magnificent achievement from them. It does genuinely seem like these guys are built for Reload, and they are, in my opinion, the #1 favourite new team to qualify for the LAN. And Shark and Teeny qualified too, but you probably could have already guessed that. Now let's take a first look at the maps for heats. This is literally my first time looking at them, so let's see what we've got going on. This is heat 1. As you can see, Mr. Savage and Velo landing at their spot at the north of the map. Vico and Malabuka here too, Shark and Teeny. This spot in the south is really strong, so no surprises to see it super contested in this heat and probably in all the other ones too. I do wonder if Shark and Teeny may try and grief Hottie and Fishix in this tournament a little bit. I will talk about all of these heats in much more detail in a dedicated predictions video later on this week, but we'll have a quick look at the other heats as well, just to see what's going on. This one doesn't look quite as strong. Akira and Karama and Kami and Hari, the standout duos. If we take a look at heat 3, this one looking a little bit better. Swizzy and Pixie contesting Prism and Casper over at Chiseled Cubes. You've got Chap and Flixie as well. The Deal and Jew should be a good one. And finally, over in heat 4, who have we got? Focus and Thomas HD and Sky and Scroll both landing at Elite Armory, but I do fully believe that they will be splitting that. Most of the POIs on this map are incredibly splittable, so expect to see not a lot of spawn fighting in these heats. Now, you're currently in the best place to keep up with European Fortnite news, so don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on a video. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next one.